I gave the bullet journal method a test for the first time, and really for just one reason. I wanted to be less lame. As you'll see, there's nothing pretty about my journal at all. The thing is gray to start with, and that's pretty much all the color that it has throughout. Yeah, as I've been going along, I've gradually tried to enjoy the aesthetic dimension of organizing this information right here, but for me, it's mostly about trying to be just a little bit better of a person. In general, I'm trying to organize my day-to-day life around 4 principles. To be true to each of these principles, then I have some tactics that I'm trying to flesh out. So first, there's a line from John Carlton, a marketer, that I made my New Year's resolution a couple of years back. Be where you said you'd be, when you said you'd be there, having done what you said you'd do. So this is the principle of reliability. I was so convicted by this because I tend to fail at this really often unless I'm super committed to it. What tactics do I use to try to stay true to this principle? Well, first I use Google Calendar on my phone and my laptop with alerts, and I love the analog approach of the journal, but for me there's really no substitute to my phone dinging at me, telling me, hey buddy, it's time right now to do this particular time-sensitive thing. But then the standard bullet journal method really helps too. You've got your future log, you've got your month at a glance, and you've got your weekly or daily tasks. So the index tells me where everything is, of course. And then here's my future log. When something is happening more than a couple weeks out, it goes here. Events are indicated by a circle, and tasks are a bullet. Stars are, of course, for the super important things. Then there's the month at a glance. I haven't been great at doing this, as you can see, but ideally, as the new month comes around, I move events and time-bound tasks into the month at a glance log here. These then help me plan my week and my day. Early on, I used a new page for every day, and I listed the tasks that were on my to-do again each new day. I also tried to apply Cal Newport's principle of planning every single minute with these time blocks. We'll talk about that more later. When a task didn't get done, I would migrate it to the next day's list by indicating that with an arrow, standard bullet journal stuff. It would get a new bullet on the next day. Ultimately, though, I had so many things on my list that were getting put off because they were not urgent or not important enough. Ideally, then you just strike through these things and you forget about them. But for me, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do eventually, and it was annoying me to have to keep writing them down each day. So the result is I decided to scrap the daily page and moved to a weekly task list and one spread for the whole week's time blocking. There's more flexibility from day to day. I can see that there's a task that I'm not going to get to for 3 or 4 or maybe 10 to 12 days. And instead of migrating it 3 or 4 or 10 to 20 times, I can migrate it between 0 and 3 times instead. For my weekly time blocking spread, I just numbered from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. down both sides, and right down the middle, I used 30 minutes per line. Then I put the day at the top and the date. Beside the time blocks, I leave space so that I can revise my schedule as the day unfolds, or so I can put notes about specific things in my schedule. So there you go. My first principle is reliability. The second one is intentionality. I don't want to just be on time and have things done. I want to make sure I'm doing the right things, the things that really matter. Stephen Covey says, don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. So tactically, Covey says that you put in the big rocks first, and then you let the sand fill in around them. The things that are high impact and high importance are the big rocks. And these are both things that are urgent and non-urgent. It's harder to schedule, though, the non-urgent stuff. So my big rocks that are urgent are the classes that I teach at certain times. They're easy to put in. But then I've got things going like my PhD, which is a 5-year project. It's super important to me, but if I don't make it a big rock and put it in my schedule as a priority, it will become a 10-year project instead, or a never project. I don't want that to happen. I make it a top priority by blocking in big chunks into my busy schedule, effectively saying that things like email will have to work around it. I do try to schedule the time blocks that I'm online too, doing email or whatever else. I find that if I give myself a couple of half-hour chunks per day for email and online tasks, then I work faster on those things. It doesn't dominate my day and leave me feeling like all I did all day was email. And that's another Cal Newport thing. Principle 3 is work hard, rest well. And that's a phrase I got from my old pastor and successful PhD recipient, John Van Dyke. I love the way that Annie Dillard puts it. How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So I want to spend my life having worked hard and rested well. And that means that I want to spend my days doing that. Tactically, this translates into a couple things. First, the daily shutdown. Being a teacher and sort of an administrator, that stuff could dominate my life if I let it. So I try to implement a daily shutdown. This is a Cal Newport trick that I'm resolving to do even better in the coming year. So a shutdown includes a look over the day's progress, accounts for the things that will need to be given immediate attention the following day, and I do a first draft of time blocking for the next day as well. At the end of the shutdown period, I literally shut down my laptop and my workday is over. And now I'm free to rest well, to focus on my family and my callings toward them, to watch Netflix if I want to. I'm just not going to be a workaholic, so I want to work hard and then rest well. Finally, then, principle number 4. This should really be principle number 1. It's the principle of integrity. Integrity according to my vocations or my callings. Really, before I know what to work hard on, before I know what to be intentional about scheduling, before I show up with work done on time, I really ought to know what I'm meant to be doing with my life in the first place. And for the last 5 years or so, I've been thinking more about my vocations, and I've tried to list and review and rank and revise these as I go. In fact, doing this video ended up being a good occasion for me to update my conceptions of my vocations. Some of them change, some of them don't. Once I know what I'm called to be, I know much better what I'm supposed to do with my week. Determining whether I'm living with integrity calls for reviews, ideally weekly and monthly reviews. I haven't done this as well as I'd like to in 2016. I'm committed to doing this a lot better in the coming year. First, I list each vocation. I make some notes about the degree to which my week or my month has demonstrated commitment to that vocation, and then I make some resolutions for the following week or month. I like to ask what one action in each vocation would mean that I could look back on the coming week when it's all done and say, yep, I followed this calling in a significant way. So, lest you think that I'm a better human being than I am, behold my habit tracker. I started out listing the things that I wanted to do nearly every day. Jerry Seinfeld's got this thing where he says he keeps motivated to write jokes every day because each time he writes, he puts a big X on the calendar for that day, and then he gets a bunch of X's in a row, and then he's motivated to not break that chain of X's. Well, as you can see, I'm no Jerry Seinfeld. I still think he's onto something, though. This is valuable, and I'm thinking through how I'm going to approach this in the coming year. Okay, so there's the way that I, ideally anyway, use this bullet journal. It's not to draw pretty things, but to be less lame, hopefully, so that eventually I might be able to say that I'm a fairly responsible human being with decent character. It's just a hack meant to serve those ends. So maybe some of you are curious about the journal itself. I use this brand Loistrom, and I'm not very careful with my journal, and neither are my kids, so it's pretty beat up. In fact, just today it started looking like it's going to fall apart any time now. I may have to switch to a new journal with 75 blank pages left, which is kind of a bummer. I'll probably use the same brand though. I'll be more intentional about how I break it in this time, and I may go for one that has a dot grid instead of lines. I also started out not caring about what pen I was using, and I just used whatever was there. But now I care a lot, it turns out. It's got to be 0.2 or 0.3 black, and it's either Sakura Micron, Japanese brand, or Shinhan Art touch liner. That's a Korean brand. Okay, one last thing. I don't just use the journal to achieve integrity and responsibility. I just write stuff in it. Poems, notes on books or articles that I'm reading, ideas, and maybe most importantly, a record of who's won how many games in Settlers of Catan in our family. Ultimately, it's a journal, it's not just a day planner. So I'm an old dog trying to learn new tricks, and this is a first go at this, so, don't judge. I'm sure my next one will be maybe a little more aesthetically pleasing, and I'll learn some new hacks that help move the whole project forward. Hope you've enjoyed.